Hello and welcome to the Straight Report, where we give it to you straight. I'm TONYA Gray alongside Miss Brenda Scott, and today our guest is Democratic House of Representative Robert Johnson, representing District 94, which includes Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson counties. Thank you so much for being here today, Representative Johnson.
Thank you all for having me.
Yes, sir. So, Ed, we believe we like to educate and inform our audience, and so there may be some things that I want you to break down just from just the informational standpoint. Can you explain to our audience what you do as a House of Representative and how that differs from what the Senate does?
Yes, that's a great question. You always assume people understand the mechanics of how things work in state government. But you got three branches of government: the legislative branch, judicial branch, and the executive branch. In our state, we have the governor, and we have a Supreme Court and the other courts. But we also have two houses of the legislature, and essentially they do the same thing. The Senate is composed of 52 senators, and their districts are made up of 50,000 people. The House is made up of 122, I always get this number, 22 House members, and our district's population is 22,000 people. And the idea is that it provides a balance, supposedly. We both introduce legislation, we both pass laws. Some bills are introduced in the House, some bills are introduced in the Senate, some are introduced in both. For instance, when I got a bill that I'm introducing and I really want to accelerate its chance for passing, I'll get a colleague in the Senate to introduce the same bill. So that the politics are not quite right in the House. Maybe I'll get it out of the Senate and I'll get another shot at it in the House, and vice versa. But essentially, we both come in, we take requests from the public or whatever we assess are the needs in our district, and we request legislation every year to be passed to try to benefit the state or benefit our district. Every year we have over 2,000 bills that are requested or introduced, but we pass less than 10% of those. So everybody gets a shot. Everybody introduces legislation. They're assigned to a committee by. In the House of Representatives, the Speaker assigns the bills. He sits down with his staff and he goes through each bill and decides which committee it goes to. And they do essentially the same thing in the Senate, and that would be the Lieutenant Governor and his staff. And they'll sign bills. And so those bills go to the requisite committee. If it's a highway bill, it should go to transportation. If it's a bill requesting money for an agency, it goes to appropriation. If it's a bill that deals with crime in starting a new law on crime, it would go to Jud B, which is the Criminal Justice Committee. Then if it deals with lawsuits or torts or claims that a person may have, it'll go to Jud A. We have two judiciary committees, and so those that would be civil type matters would go to Jud A. And on down the line. Ways and Means in the House deals with bonds and money that we loan or borrow or pay back for programs, usually one-time money. And in the Senate, that same committee is called the Finance Committee. So all those committees have roles. Public health, in the House we have public health and Medicaid. In the Senate we have public health and Medicaid deal with those issues. So that's kind of the way it works.
Okay. Now you mentioned that only 10% of the bills get passed. Is that just by design? Is that just a number you figure, or that's just as much?
It's not necessarily by design. You can't pass it. We have enough laws on the book, so there's only so much so many new things you can do, and people may have ideas, but they don't meet the requirements under the law to become a law. You can have an idea, you can request anything. I can request that we have snake fighting, or I can request that everybody, no matter what, you have a license to fly, but you don't want everybody. So people make requests, but all the bills just are not bills that should pass.
Okay.
And then a lot of bills, we have a lot of great bills coming out of the Democratic caucus out of the Black caucus that really help people and address needs in this state. And they don't pass because the politics are not the thing that we want to do.
You said gray bills, Gray? Gray?
Great.
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 Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Great bill. Gotcha.
And there's some great ones in there too.
Not to interrupt you, but I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah.
Because what you just stated is exactly what I've been trying to tell the public: the power of the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor and those political. Sometimes we get a bill in, they just change the state to Mississippi.
That's right.
And it's some bills that's in
Alabama or somewhere
like
else.
voting rights and things of that nature.
You make a great point. So one thing that happens on Democrats and Republicans at its core, Democrat leaders and the Republican leaders are different at its core in this sense. Republicans sort of all read and write from the same script. They follow the same roadmap. They have think tanks all over the country that essentially write legislation for them. It doesn't have to be appropriate for Mississippi, but if it's a conservative idea, they send it and they send it all around. And Ms. Scott is right. It may go in Alabama, be an Alabama law, and then it comes to Mississippi, it's the same law, just change the name and the wording.
Let me interrupt you again. For instance, the voting rights bill that we have some of the most strictest rules when it comes to having the ability to vote. What else could they do to make our voting law any worse than what it is now?
Well, you could look at the Texas law, which people tried to introduce it here, and for some thankful reason, the Secretary of State didn't push it, and we didn't, and the Speaker didn't let any of it out. But we had some of those really, you think it's bad, some really terrible laws that were about to come back.
It's still not over because every year they can come back.
They'll be back.
Yeah,
they'll be back. It's like this whole idea. There's no issue of critical race theory. We barely teach African American history in our school, and they got bills banning critical. I'm like, okay, and and
we're going to get to that too, Representative Johnson. Go ahead.
And so I try to tell, and sometimes as a Democratic leader, I tell folks, so what are we going to do about this critical race theory? We're not going to do anything. We're not going to say a word. You don't add fuel. You don't feed something that they need somebody to say it. Right. Just let them do what they're going to do. We know it doesn't exist. They could pass the law. It doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. They don't teach it now. Our responsibility for that kind of information has always been on us, and we'll have to get it that way. And that may be a time when we have to bring that issue to the forefront and deal with it. But we don't. It's just a political baiting. It's like they need to create a controversy where there is not one. I tell everybody, I said, what about critical? I said, I want to talk about this $1.8 billion that's sitting in the bank that our people need, that our frontline workers need, that our state employees need, that our teachers need. That's what I want to talk about. You can talk about all that all you want to. Let's talk about that because whether you're Republican or Democrat, everybody we have the highest rate of poverty in the country, the lowest per capita income. We pay our state employees, our teachers less than anybody, and that doesn't have anything to do. Look, I don't care if you're white or black, you're not making any money if you're any of those people. And so those people represent all those people. And so what we need to do is when they start talking about that, let's ask them about that. You want to talk about critical race theory? Let me ask you: do you want to pay frontline workers? Do you want to supplement the salary of nurses? Do you want to pay death benefits to the law enforcement officers? Let's talk about that. That's what we need to talk about because that affects people's lives. That's what we're dealing with. So this red herring that you have out here that you want to talk about because you don't have a real issue that you need to deal with, we do. We got real issues, and so we want to talk about them.
Well, since you are talking about the $6 billion that has flowed into the state of Mississippi, $1.8 billion has been appropriated by the Mississippi legislature. Talk about what you want to do in ways that you want to see that money used.
Well, last year we had the CARES Act that came through, and it was under Donald Trump, and he looked at it as a political football that he could take credit for, which was fine if it's going to benefit our folks. But the money got here, and the Republicans sitting in the room found all the reasons why we couldn't spend it this way, we couldn't spend it that way, and they made it difficult for businesses to apply for the grants. And I can tell you, this is why I know that if the public spend time paying attention and calling their folks, even if they're Republicans, you'd have a different outcome. Because the Republicans were sitting in the room, and there were a number of Republicans agreeing with me. They said, look, let's not make it hard. Let's make it easy. Let's not make the grant $2,500. Let's make it $5,000 for each individual. Let's let small businesses who need it, that could be hairdressers, barbers, whatever profession it is. Let's not look and see when the last time they paid their income tax. If you qualify as a business, you're incorporated as a business, take the $25,000, give it to them. Because the idea is that we want to keep these businesses going. We want to keep people employed and keeping them paid. That's what we need to do. There were Republicans in the room agreeing with me because you know what? I know why they were agreeing with me because their communities were being affected in a desperate way that they needed help. And so, but the other people would have agreed if more people were paying attention and they were beating on the wall, beating on the table, and said, "We need this to come back to our community."
Representative, hold that thought. Today's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co, black owned and roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. We will live stream on Facebook as well as WeBelieveDigital.com. Please be sure to share and tag a friend. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Straight Report. Representative Johnson, you were expounding on the $1.8 billion and some of the ways you want to see
Okay,
that
so
used.
last year we had over $2 billion, and so that money was supposed to go to small business and individuals. We fiddle-faddle around. We made the application process so cumbersome that didn't matter where you white. I had more Republican business people calling me saying, "Look, I don't want to apply for the money. It takes too much. It's taking too long. I just leave it alone." So we ended up with $186 million that we didn't spend. You know what they did with that money?
$186 million?
Well, $186 million.
No.
And this is what the public needs to know. So instead of finding a way to give that money away, they kept saying, "Oh, we got a deadline. We got to spend it by December." I said, "That's not what it says. You got to receive it by December. You got plenty of time." And they found out later, "Oh, we got another 2 years. We can spend the money." They pushed the envelope to say that we needed to spend that money by the end of December. Said, "Well, we don't spend it. We have to give it back. Why don't we just give it to employment security?" Now, what people need to understand about that, and this is what they understand about that: corporations and major businesses, not small business, major businesses pay a fee to unemployment, and it's in employment security. They pay that fee out of they're responsible under the law to pay that fee. And they were crying, they were whining, "It's hard on us, the pandemic is hurting us." Well, it's hurting small, you can absorb the loss.
Right.
Small businesses can't. We took $186 million and paid that fee for Walmart, Nissan, Toyota, people like that in this state. And so what the public needs to know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you're a working person, a carpenter, a small business person, a teacher, anybody, and you voted Republican, know that they are pandering to people who are multi-billionaire, multinational corporations when they could be taking care of you. It is criminal that in a poor state like the state of Mississippi, we took $186 million and give it to people who don't need it. Most of whom don't even pay taxes in this state.
On that note, I remember some years ago, there was so much money floating around, they went and lowered the fees that businesses pay, but failed to raise the unemployment benefits.
They did the same thing this time. Didn't raise the unemployment benefits, paid these people's fees. And we are a state of working people, and we are a state of small businesses, and that should have been our priority. It should always be our priority, and that's not what we did. And so when I tell people it makes a difference when you vote, who you vote for, and when you vote for them, hold them accountable.
Exactly.
I was at a town hall meeting. Fayette, Mississippi is in my district. Small, 8,000 people in the whole county. They had a town hall meeting. There were about maybe 10 or 15 people in the room. But the people in a little rural town like Fayette, there were 2 or 3 people who said, "Well, I called the governor's office and I talked to him. I told him." There were 1 or 2 people doing that. We need thousands of people doing that, calling people. But I was proud of the fact that people in the area like that.
So that's how you hold elected officials accountable. You have to have droves of people.
You got to have people call them. If nothing else, you don't even have to talk to them. Just let them know that you're paying attention.
Well, let me ask you this then, Representative Johnson. How would the constituents know that it was $186 million that wasn't being spent?
Read the paper.
It's in
It's right there. They kept telling you.
Right.
Well, we got $186 million. We don't know what we're going to do with it. We got $186 million. We got to spend by December. We need to. I mean, that was the time that people should have been on and said, "Well, send $18 million down here to Adams County.
Right.
We got a mental health facility we need to keep open." I mean, there are things, if you listen to people, they'll tell you what we can do. But what happens is, I think the speaker has, well, he probably has $500,000 in his speakers fund that, individual working people didn't give him that money. He is responding to people who gave him that money.
Right.
The governor has over $4 or $5 million in his campaign fund.
Got the best government money can buy.
Yeah, right. You look at look at what he promotes, what program he supports,
Right.
and you can. All you got to do is follow the money. You know what they support, and look, all those people. My wife is a lobbyist. All those people have a job to do. That's fine. To do their job, but you can't allow people to ignore you
Exactly.
while they're listening to people who get paid to be at the Capitol.
Exactly.
One of the saddest statements that I've ever heard the governor make is when the pandemic hit, right? Call your health department. When you talk about 186 million, health departments are closed in many counties. People are dying trying to get some health care.
Oh, then they compounded the problem by telling people, well, don't go to your health department, go to your hospitals. Well, you're the same person that won't expand Medicaid. There's some hospitals that can't.
Yes.
There's some hospitals that are closed,
Right.
and there are others who are so overwhelmed that they can't see anybody.
That's right.
And we kept saying, and we got this money here. He vetoed. The community health centers had a program, the magnet program, where they would take it. Nobody serves more. They can't turn anybody away. Poor people come in there, they treat them. They said, give us $6 million in these 5 centers, and we will ramp up and hire more people to vaccinate more people. We will extend our outreach. He vetoed that, saying, I don't know who these people are.
Wow.
I don't know who they're serving. All of the Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center is the largest comprehensive health center in the state. You don't know who they are? You just 4 years ago, your Republican governor, when we told him we should expand Medicaid, he said, we don't need to expand Medicaid. We'll just run our money through the community health center. They'll serve all our people. You still need to expand Medicaid. They got to have money to do it. But you were touting these centers, and he endorsed that idea. So the same people you say that we don't need to expand Medicaid, we just let poor people go to these community health centers. You don't even want to give them the money to do the job.
Right.
And so they talk out of both sides of their mouth, and then people, let them get away with it. I just saw what we left of that money, we gave $186 million away. One of the reasons we were able to fold ourselves into that program, and we did get some for our communities, we got a $40 million committed to black-owned businesses. They couldn't take advantage of it. The same reason the white businesses couldn't is because they made it so cumbersome they couldn't apply for the money. But we left $40 million with the governor. He sat on that money. One of the reasons they didn't want to give it to the governor because they said he'll just give it to his friends, won't take care of our folks. So I saw where he took 14 or 10 or 12 or some millions of dollars and funded a joint health program with Jackson State and Mississippi College. Fine. Why are you giving it to? Why are you doing that now? When these same community health centers, Jackson State has to put a program together, has to figure out how it's going to go, and then train people to do. Here are community health centers that are asking for money to train people and put people to work, train nurses, train LPNs, train registered nurses, train physical. They're saying, give us the money, we will do that, and you don't want to give them the money. And so sometimes you see looks like a benefit when they know where it could more acutely help your community and more quickly help it. They won't give it to them, but they'll put on a show by giving it. Now, I'm glad Jackson State got the money, but that's not where we need the money right now.
Right.
And that money, Jackson State should have their own medical school anyway. They're in Jackson. That's what the Ayers suit said. They should have the law school, engineering, and the medical school should be at Jackson State. So you giving them a little taste of money doesn't solve any of the problems. So those kind of things. And I don't want, what I would hate to see is people from Jackson State, well, governor gave my institution, he gave them some money.
Lord God.
Yeah, but every year they tell them no when they need to build a new dorm or they need to attract more people. They need a new football stadium. They've told them, we don't want to give you that money. But we want to take the one you're playing in and get that property to University of Mississippi Medical Center, which is fine. But if you do that, you need to give me something for it.
Exactly.
And instead of saying, well, he gave us some money, so we're not going to say anything. You taking $12 million here when they owe you $80 million over there. They owe them $80 million. That's an $80 to $90 million piece of real estate that Jackson State has kept open, and they haven't Jackson State come in and beg them for a state. No, just do our intergovernmental transfer. You're going to eventually give that property to UMC. Give us the money for it. That's what should happen.
Speaking of you, I don't want to take over.
No, go ahead.
We were talking about them talking out of both sides of their mouths, the Republican. I have an issue with them claiming to be pro-life. I think they're more pro-birth. Because you can, regardless of how the child get here, when you're voting against every program meant to sustain life,
right,
regardless of how that child got here. You're not pro-life if you won't support programs that sustain, like the child. They talk about education. I support teachers 100%.
Right.
But try a hungry child, an abused child, a sick kid trying to learn. You have to deal with that child in its totality. We got to stop letting them hog the Bible when it's convenient for them during election time.
Yeah.
But all through their whole 4 years, it's nothing.
Well, these are the same people who were hogging the Bible when they were hanging black people,
Exactly.
when they were terrorizing black people, when they were turning you away from the polls. Mm-hmm. They were doing it in the name of what the word said.
Yeah.
They would show you in the Bible, this is what you should do.
Exactly.
They would tell you.
In the name of Christianity.
Right, in the name of Christianity. Mm-hmm. So, that doesn't mean as much to me. The problem I got is that sometimes our people in their devotion to their religion get caught up in the whole. And I tell them, I said, look, that's not your issue. That's not your issue.
Right.
First of all, it's a woman's issue more than anything. But more importantly, it's a federal issue. It's not your issue. Now, if you want to make it your issue, fine.
Hold it, Representative Johnson. Yeah. Today's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co, black owned and roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Representative Johnson and Ms. Brenda Scott. COVID's pioneering coronavirus protocol firm, SGE COVID Solutions, is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols which have been developed internationally by top virologists and scientists, using an all-natural cleaning solution that kills COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. Let SGE COVID Solutions provide innovative, rapid facilities testing and world-class, state-of-the-art bio-risk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Welcome back. Continue on with your point, Representative Johnson.
When some of my folks talk about, I'm anti-abortion, that's fine. That's your individual opinion, but don't get into a political issue with it. But if you're going to talk about abortion, ask them why we have the highest infant mortality rate in the country.
There you go.
Ask them why we have the highest rate of crib deaths in the country.
Right.
Why is it that, especially in the black community, women's health care is a disaster? They can't get the kind of attention they need. They can't get to a specialist. If you care that much about life, take care. Some of these women can't afford to have a baby.
Exactly.
If you care so much about life, create an environment where they can get a job and take care of these kids. Quit voting against daycare for working people. If you care about life, quit doing that. And so if you really care about it, it's got to be all encompassing. You got to cover the whole spectrum. If you believe in life, you believe in a life that starts at conception. If you believe that, then you also got to believe in that you want to provide a life that's worth living for a person, an adult that's got to take care of that child. You got to do all of that. And these same people, and I hate to keep coming back, but if you can turn down $9 billion a year in Medicaid expansion, and that's not giveaway money. This is money to take care of people who are working.
That's right.
They're working every day.
Poor,
These are working poor people. These are people who they take money out of their check and they still don't have enough to pay for health insurance. If you can't do that, then you don't care about life. You really don't care about life.
I agree.
When a woman is trying to have a baby, dies on the way to an emergency room because it's 40 miles away because there's no hospital in her area because you didn't expand Medicaid to fund that hospital, you don't care about life.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you this. We keep talking about the governor did not expand Medicaid.
It wasn't just the governor, it was the legislature too.
The legislature.
Yeah, right.
Is that something that can be brought back before the legislature so that it can?
Every year. Look, the first time when the Affordable Care Act, they kept saying, we got to do it now. And the federal government kept extending. Look, if you didn't do it, I'm going to still leave it up. You still get that money. You can still get 100% funding. If you hadn't expanded this year, you can still expand it. We'll still give you the money. They can still do it. States up. A lot of people are coming on board late. It needs to happen. And the interesting thing is, it may be getting to a point that is so critical that we have to do something. When the state economists, now 12 years ago when the Affordable Care Act first came out, the state economists, they kept pressing them. It's going to cost us money. Well, nah, not really. It really is not. Actually, it's going to make money. And then they sort of shut him down. So the new state economist, without any prompting, was asked a question and said, no, expanding Medicaid, not only will it not cost you money, it's going to make you money.
That's right.
It's going to create it's going to create 9,000 to 10,000 new jobs with an average pay of $60,000 a year. It'll help keep small rural hospitals open because that uncompensated care. All hospitals in Mississippi, just about every hospital in Mississippi is a public hospital, and they because of the I can't think of the name of the act, but it was passed in 1968. They can't turn people away. If you show up at an emergency room, you don't whether you have insurance or not, they got to take you.
Exactly.
And so when we did away with when the Affordable Care Act was passed, they used to have something on the Medicaid called uncompensated care, and the federal government would reimburse you for that. Well, when the Affordable Care Act, if you didn't participate in the program, you don't get uncompensated care anymore. So these hospitals are bearing a cost they can't afford to bear because we keep saying no to money that somebody else is getting.
And the hospital association supports it too.
They support expanding Medicaid. They support it because their lifeblood is they need to have it done.
That's right.
The weird thing is that the State Medical Association, up until this year, didn't support it. I'm like, doctors. First of all, hospitals, you're giving these doctors, I'm a lawyer, you're giving them cover under sovereign immunity. All doctors stop having their own practice, start working with these public hospitals because the legislature passed a law that allowed them to be covered if they were employees of the hospital. You can't really sue them, or if you can sue them, it's going to be limited what you can sue them for. They have that benefit, and then they turn around and say no to a program that you need. You can't let them do that. So all of a sudden this year, they want Medicaid expansion. I know you do because you're about to not have a practice.
Right.
Oh, you're saying they want it now?
No, now they're endorsing Medicaid expansion. Randy Easterling, who was one of the most virulent...
the legislature was endorsing it.
No, the medical association. When Randy Easterling was president of the medical association, he was against it. And he was one of the most right-wing Republicans. He called me about 6 months ago, Robert, we need to expand Medicaid. I guess you do because y'all about to drive down in Vicksburg.
See?
But I tell people, I say, look, we don't support it because it's some kind of feel-good program. We support it because we need it.
Right.
It's what we need. When I tell people we may have to raise the price on gas to fix roads, we need to fix roads because they didn't fix them. West of I-55, they paved roads and built highways everywhere else in the state. But where our folks live, they didn't do any of it. So people say, why? I say, look, I know that they don't have the money, but if they get the money, all I need is the priority to be on our folks.
Right.
If you don't build roads and bridges, I don't care how much you pay teachers. If there's no industry and no employment in those areas, and they're not coming if you don't have an infrastructure. If you don't do that, then we don't have jobs. And I tell back to what you were talking about. If mom and dad are sitting at home and unemployed, and you put all your money in the teacher pay raises, and you built a school, and the kids don't have anybody there to help them, no enthusiasm at home, you're not helping anybody.
That's right.
You got to start where people can make a living and feel good about where they live. Right. They can help their kids. They can do these kind of things. And so it's not a one-sided thing. We have to do that. But that's what we do. That's what Democrats support. Yeah. And quietly, there are a lot of Republicans, but they bought into this radical craziness that they say one thing publicly. I've had them come to Robert, I think it's a great idea, but I can't vote for it.
Why can't you? Why can't? I mean, you can vote however you want to vote.
Yeah, but their argument. They could if they would be honest and be upfront and they would stand on their own two feet. Some of them do. If they would do that, because that's what their voters want.
Right.
We would have never had medical marijuana.
What's right for the people.
Right. If they hadn't been on the ballot initiative, we would have never had medical marijuana. If they hadn't killed the ballot initiative, we would have Medicaid expansion. It had been polled. It polled the same rate as medical marijuana. If it got put on the ballot, the 60 to 65% of the population of Mississippi, Republicans or Democrats, wanted 54% of the Republicans wanted, and 70% of the Democrats thought we ought to expand Medicaid. So if you put it, the people want it.
Exactly.
So if you saying that that's not what my constituency want, it's crazy. But we got Republicans right now whose district voted 70% for medical marijuana saying, well, I'm not voting for it because my district didn't want it. Have you looked at the numbers? Stop reading that newsletter you get from Alec every year and start doing what your people want.
That's right. That's right.
Representative Johnson, question for you on the heels of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the Build Back Better bill and Manchin not voting for the bill being a Democrat?
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. What doesn't make any sense about Manchin is that next to Mississippi, West Virginia is probably the poorest state in the country. And in some outcomes, it even outdistances Mississippi in terms of some of his health outcomes and some of his employment outcomes. And the idea that he's worried about the cost of something in where he lives in a state. If Texas may bear the cost because they're a rich state, California or New York may bear the cost, West Virginia, Mississippi will never bear the cost of any of that. They will bear the benefit of it because it will help them. They need it. They got to have it. The coal industry is about to be done in West Virginia. Anything you can do to improve the infrastructure in that state just like you would in the state of Mississippi, is going to create jobs and create opportunity. Him voting against it makes no sense to me. And there ought to be a punishment for it. They polled the population in the state, the voters in the state. He runs statewide. They polled the voters. 65% of them say, we want the Build Back Better. So who is he listening to?
Right.
So he's pandering to somebody who doesn't vote for him, but probably somebody who he's in their back pocket.
Exactly.
That's all the only thing explains it to me.
Let me ask y'all, do you know how much money is in the rainy day fund as we speak?
Oh, wow.
I don't know exactly. It's full. We can't put any more money in it.
It's
We can't
full.
put any
We
more
can't put more money in it. Yeah.
And we're going to be getting all of this federal money in, the money that they will accept, right?
Yeah. No, they're
My
going to
point
accept
is,
that.
Even with that,
Yeah.
they're still talking about cutting government.
I know. They still, I mean, that's what doesn't make any sense. First of all, the state of Mississippi is the largest employer in the state. You got people working every day. And we still can't deliver the services that we need to deliver. What are we going to cut?
That's what I'm saying.
We need everybody
Please,
working.
that's what we're
Like
asking
that.
you. Where are we gonna?
Well, there's nowhere to cut. There's nowhere. It sounds good. It sounds like you're doing something, but But people keep electing people who keep saying that,
Exactly.
and then you go home hungry.
Yeah.
You go home. Your shoes got holes in them. Why do you keep voting for people who keep making your life harder?
Exactly.
There's nothing to cut. There's nothing to cut. You talk about a rainy day fund. We have $2 billion surplus in just our general fund.
Right.
We $2
Ooh,
billion
Lord.
flush. $2 billion. And all we can come up with is what we're gonna cut. When we need roads, we need bridges, schools, the buildings that kids go, talking about teacher pay rate, the building they go to school in, some of them don't have central heating and cooling. With $2 billion, you could subsidize the internet infrastructure, the fact that 40% of our state doesn't have access to Wi-Fi. You could subsidize the infrastructure that you need to get that done with $2 billion. You could do that. And so you have a responsibility, if you really believe in education and creating an environment. Speaker had a seminar about two years ago about how do we keep
Hold
people
that thought,
here.
Representative Johnson. I want you to come back with that point. Today's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co, black owned and roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. Also check us out on Facebook Live, We Believe Digital Podcast. You're tuned in to the Straight Report. Continue on with your point,
So
Representative
they built a big 2-day seminar downtown Jackson about how do we keep young people from leaving, the flight of our young people, white and black. I'm saying kids are not leaving because they hate Mississippi. They're leaving because they're not enough jobs, and the jobs that are here don't pay enough. They don't see a future. And so your answer to that is to, let's see if we can do away with the income tax. Well, that may be interesting to some people, but most people that's going to attract going to be older people. Younger people want you to create new opportunities. They want new cultural opportunities, new job opportunities. That's what we ought. We ought to be trying to grow our population here and have reasons for them to stay here. So again, you're saying one thing and doing another. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, and these are not complex. These are serious problems, but the solutions are not complex solutions. Most of them can be solved with money.
I wanted to ask you a question because I was just looking at Hinds County, how they was able to give essential workers or workers who can show that they had the vaccination this one time, like if you made less than $25,000, you got a $4,000.
Yeah.
Between 25 and 50 there. And I think about the essential workers of the state, the Medicaid workers who had to work really without the full implementing the CDC guideline.
Yeah.
Your correction workers.
That's right.
I want to
They gotta
know
be at
if
work.
there's anything any better at the correctional facilities since all of the inequity, the building, the physical condition that these inmates are living in, and I know COVID have not been nice as far as allowing you all inside to see
no.
if anything has changed.
Right.
But have you heard any street talk?
There's some change coming. But COVID is in terms of the infrastructure and the buildings, they're working on those things, but not at a rate that you or I would be comfortable or feel good about. The biggest thing is that there are too many people and not enough employees. They don't pay.
Yes.
They don't pay the employees
And the
enough.
majority female.
And the majority female because they can't find men who will work for that salary. And women you shouldn't have 80% of your staff be women in a all male facility.
I completely agree with that.
And then not enough of them.
I
Not enough
completely
of the
agree.
women. They don't have enough. And so you ask, what Jackson did is what they should have done. What Hinds County did is what they should have done. That was federal money that came in to do that. They put it to use quickly. That's what the state of Mississippi should be doing. That's what that $1.8 billion is for. That's what $1.8 billion. I wrote a letter. In fact, I did a press release back in July and sent it to the speaker. And he didn't say it was because he agreed with me. And then he and Delbert came out about 2 weeks later and sending a letter to the governor asking him to call a special session to do supplemental pay for frontline workers. Let's get into this $1.8 billion. Let's call a special session. We can do that now. One of the primary things that they could have done was pay death benefits to fallen officers, to their families, that we can't do in the state right now. We could have done that. We also could have paid nurses a supplemental salary, additional money to keep them from leaving and taking that extra money, which they should if they can make that money. And any other frontline workers, garbage collectors, like you said, correction officers, policemen, Medicaid workers, firemen. We could have done all that. The governor said, nah, that's okay. We don't need to do that right now.
Following up on that, I know you had a hearing with the county sheriffs about housing inmates. How did that turn out?
They want the county sheriffs. That program had been good because it kept people employed, and it also provided some training for people who were there. But it also helped the counties like in Jefferson County, they had a work center, and it helped
clean buildings,
things that the county budget wouldn't allow, and they paid the Department of Correction, and it helped also take that money and use it in that facility to have better living conditions for those the people who were interned in those facilities. And so they'd like to see that go back. It's just that there was so much corruption and so much waste in the Department of Corrections that it probably sometime this year we'll probably see some changes in that. But it because of that, that's been a slow process in getting it done. Yeah.
Okay.
Representative Johnson, I wanted to ask too, because there's more money that's flowing from the $6 billion. It's something like $577 million for counties, $258 million for smaller cities, and $97 million for metro cities. Kind of talk about some of the ways in which you want that money used for your district, and are you already receiving that money? Have you already?
Well, that money you just talked about goes directly to the cities and the counties. They do that. Well, we're trying, and in most cases we found that it's not enough, and they put it to use.
They've
For
already
instance,
doing it.
Hinds County got $40 million. They put it. One of the things the state kept stressing with them, put it in crime prevention. I don't know what they did, but they did put it in crime prevention. I don't know exactly what they did, but clearly they need more to be put in crime prevention. They need more money.
Really?
And so with that $1.8 billion that we have, that the state has, our needs, these local communities' needs are a little bit greater than ours. And that's why it offends me when the lieutenant governor says, well, we'll send some money to those municipalities and those counties, but they gotta have some matching money. Well, if they had matching money, they wouldn't need you to have money, right? They need the money.
Exactly.
They're poor.
Oh my God.
They're don't be so elitist that you start acting like this is your money.
Right.
First of all, the Republican legislators in this state didn't vote for those packages. They voted against them.
Exactly.
Your colleagues, your party.
Exactly.
And so if Democrats send it down here, don't start riding herd on it like you're going to all of a sudden, the money you didn't want, you're going to tell us how we're going to spend it.
Exactly.
At least be humble enough to say, okay, we didn't vote for it, our folks didn't vote for it, they sent it to us, let's see how we can use this to help people. At least do that.
Yes.
At least do that. But I'm telling you,
My faith is not strong in
I
that.
had a fellow Black Caucus member said, now the lieutenant governor said, we get some matching money. I said, don't go anywhere repeating that. You ought to be saying that it's a crime that he would even make that request.
Right.
Don't even use that as an excuse to do something.
Right.
No, we're not matching anything. If you want us to match it, just keep it.
That's right.
And then watch your infrastructure in your state crumble because you were too highbrow to do the right thing. Let's do that. But don't and call them out on it. Well, even these. I'm saying, even these poor white folks who keep voting for them, maybe sooner or later they'll say, I got to stop voting for folks just because they white, because I keep thinking they're going to hurt black folks, but actually they hurt me.
Everybody.
It hurts me. Just like it hurts me.
Right.
Yeah. Look, when you poor, nobody cares what color you are.
That's absolutely
I mean, you got people in Northeast Mississippi. You go to Northeast Mississippi, there are places in Northeast Mississippi that's just as bad as the Delta.
Yeah.
And they're represented by white Republicans, and they won't send money to those areas. You ought to quit sending people down here doing that to you.
That's right.
You need to stop doing
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Representative Johnson, I read an article on the ACLU that reads, Mississippi Joint Legislative Redistricting Committee violates the Open Meetings Act. Kind of talk about the lack of transparency with those meetings and what's going on with the redistrict. Well, it's already done. You're going to
part of it is the congressional districts were drawn, and they're right. Look, I'm a member of the legislature. You're talking about the public. I'm a member of the legislature. I went to the meeting. I'm not on the committee, but I went to now understand that I'm not on the committee, but I've worked on judicial redistricting. I've been a part of redistricting whenever it's been done. So you would think that you'd had a minority leader from the House on the committee, but they don't want anybody on the committee who will say no, you can't do this, or no, this is not the right way to do that. But they're right. So they offered a plan that I never heard discussed in any of the meetings they were having in front of the video camera. They never talked about how we're going to draw it. This is what they never debated back and forth with the members about how these lines ought to be. They didn't take the testimony. I mean, Benny Thompson called me. The congressman called me. The congressman called them. They all, what he had, they should have done. They didn't do anything. They just came and said. In fact, the Speaker Pro Tem, Jason White, got him and said, "This is a plan that I've been working on, and the committee.
That's what I
like
read.
the committee to adopt." I was there. I'm like, wait a minute now. Wait a minute, you've been working on. Now, I get along fine with him. I work fine with him, but this is where they do things. I did it. So when the public doesn't know, I'm a legislator.
And
I don't know how you came up with it. What are the mechanics? What did you consider? What did you do? Well, So
what's the recourse if
Well, the Ethics Commission, there's been a complaint filed with the Ethics Commission. The Ethics Commission, they looked at the law. They could say, look, this you had these meetings. Whatever you came up with, you should rescind it and go back and do these hearings and let people see how you came up with
there
it.
were only
Offer
3.
the report and do that. Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, it may not happen with the Ethics Commission, but hopefully some court will say that's what they have to do. But if they go high enough, they'll get to a court. They'll give them what they want. Yeah.
Of course.
That's the way politics are done. But they're right. But again, it goes back to the public. ACLU is upset, but the public needs to be upset. The people who need to be upset, people in my Republicans in my district don't want to be in Benny Thompson's district. But that's how white folks are. They're like, he has delivered more for you than anybody. All this money you're getting wasn't because Michael Guest voted against it. He had the money sent down, but you don't want a black congressman.
Oh, that's our representative. We'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Q Talicia Garrett. I am here to introduce our New South Development and Training Outreach Hour every Tuesday at 2 p.m., giving you information on how to become a part of the programs through USDA and Farm Service Agency. We can be reached at 678-779-9468. We can also be found online at newsouthoutreach.com.
You're tuned in to the Straight Report. Representative Johnson, now you were saying that the citizens should be outraged. If you don't understand the political process and if you don't understand civics and what's going on, you won't know to be outraged.
Yeah,
kind of speak to that.
Part of that is, I don't have a staff. We don't have a staff. We got a committed assistant. A lot of people think you got a congressional staff. You got people that can do outreach. It's just me.
Right.
And so a lot of things we'd like to see done, we don't have the staff to do. But I try to tell people in my community who are community activists, to tell people, I mean, I can tell you we got a great NAACP chapter down there. They have a meeting on.
They need to come on my show.
Yeah, and we talked about issues. They got a white paper on poverty. They're going to talk about our region, our area. We need more of that kind of thing happening.
Right.
And I tell legislators, you're not community organized. You may they were saying, "Well, we need to run a vaccination program." I said, "No, you need to tell people in your community to do that. You need to spend your energy trying to pass legislation and keeping these folks up here from doing stuff that's going to hurt these people. Let's put our energies there. That's what you got elected to do." But let me go back on this redistricting.
Yes, sir.
This redistricting issue. There are a lot of things that were involved in that. The congressman said, well, I did have a conversation with the chairman of the committee, and I said, "Look, Congressman Thompson doesn't want what you were thinking about doing." This was a month and a half, 2 months ago. He said, "Well, if I took in Hinds County, I took in Madison, Rankin County, and all that, that's just gonna make his district wider." I said, "He's fine with that. He'll still have a district that's majority African American, and he can still get elected majority Democrat. He's fine with that, but he would like a compact district."
Right.
And so if Benny Thompson, who white folks seem to be afraid of, but who does, he loves his state and he doesn't discriminate in terms of who he helps and what he does something for. If Benny Thompson can say, "I don't have to have a district that's 65% or 68% African American. I just need a district that people who want what I want will vote for me."
Right.
And that doesn't have to be. So the red herring was that, we're trying to take care of him. You're not trying to take care of him. You're trying to make more of these districts a district that no Democrat, seriously nobody black can get elected in. And so our responsibility, and I'm going to talk to my members about this, and it's always a sticking point. Everybody wants, "Well, I like my district the way it is, not I got to have this community in here." That's what I said, look, at the end of the day.
But if that's not how it needs to be drawn, then you can't go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're right. If that's not how it needs to be drawn. But they're there. They're votes. And so they're going to have to agree to it. We're the ones who will vote for that plan. But I try to tell people our overall plan ought to be one. It's better for you to have, we got 42 Democrats, two of them are white. It's better for us to have 58 Democrats and 36 of them black, but you can actually get something done.
Exactly.
We need the numbers. So what's wrong with a 55% district?
Right.
What's wrong with black folks? What's wrong with every district? No matter what it is, no district needs to be more than 55% black. What's wrong with that? You know what you would have?
Right.
You'd have less of these crazy 78% black districts and 78% white districts where you get these people up here talking about if you tear down a Confederate monument, you need to be there. You'd have fewer of those people up here.
Exactly.
Or you have, black folks who just come in here asking who's going to take them to lunch tomorrow. That's what you'd have. You'd have people like, I said at a meeting about it was about 6 or 7 years ago, Black Caucus meeting, people talking about running for office. I said, look, let me tell y'all, in our communities, don't send any more old folks up here. Don't elect no more old black folks. Please don't. Now I love them, but if you really want to move forward, you need to have young people who know how to use a computer, who need to know how to have the energy. And I said, look. In that community, you got legislators who got elected with 23 and 24 years old. Now they've been here for 15 to 20 years, and now they statesmen. And I was considered a young elected official. When I got elected, I was 32.
Right.
It's you so young. I said, well, why this fellow over here been here 7 years and he right. Why do we keep doing that?
Right.
We need quit telling our young folks, well, you just need a little bit more seasoning. You don't need nothing.
You don't need anything.
I need that energy.
Let me tell you this, Representative Johnson, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I work in state government, and we have these meetings with this nonprofit organization called Team PAC. Now, Team PAC is nationwide. And one day I was walking through the building and I just saw this sea of white children, and I was like, what are all these kids doing in here? And they are a nonprofit organization where they teach them the political process. Now, I'm not going to say that the organization is just strictly for white children. Right. I'm sure it's for anyone who can pay the money. And so they have one-day state classes where they have mock trials and legislation where they're understanding how everything is, working in the political process. So these are going to be these young leaders that are going to be your new generation of attorneys, your new generation of the Senate members, the pro temp or House governor or whoever. And so there has to be that same thing that black children are exposed to. So
Yeah.
how do we get our children involved in learning the political process and civics? Because if you don't understand what's going on in redistricting and all of this, then we cannot get ahead.
Well,
Your
you
thoughts
know,
on that?
it's a little bit different in our community. We don't have the resources to start these deep. I mean, we got resources to make sure kids go into school and they got all the books. And we have to devote our energies to that. But the other benefit of that is we stress education in our community. And so what you have, like in the Black Caucus, our education level is probably twice the level of our white counterparts. You got white folks in there who got high school education. Just about everybody who's in the black
educated.
Democrat is educated.
Yeah.
And so those people in our community, we got people like that in our community. Stop hating on the people in our community who you told to go to school and get an education.
Right.
Then they say want to run for office. Nah, we're gonna stick with Robert Johnson. I'll probably get myself beat with this. We're gonna stick with Robert Johnson. We're gonna stick with Robert Johnson. He's been there a while.
But that's
I
right,
said,
though.
all right, but when Robert Johnson leaves, don't
Then
go get the
what?
person that graduated high school with Robert Johnson to run and elect them. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't go find the next Robert Johnson. Go find the next young person to run. I wasn't saying it's very valuable to have people like me and people who have that experience to
absolutely.
be
You have
here.
to have the wisdom
But
and
when
the
a person
knowledge.
decides to go home, don't bring somebody up there who is 70 years old and say, well, I got to learn the ropes. Well, how long do you think that's going to take? I mean, I guess if you were 25, I'd give you a year to learn the ropes. But I tell people get elected anyway. Don't tell nobody you come in. People elected you to get something done.
Right.
And young people will at least take the time and take the energy and hustle and push. And you may not, their ideas may not always be ready, but everybody young that's up there now push me.
Right.
And say, well, what about this? I said, well, I hadn't heard about it. Why don't you do this? And I can go to somebody young and say, please send out this press release for me. I need stuff like that. We need stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm telling you is, yeah, training programs, young people would be great. But you got people who we got HBCUs in this state who send people back home after they graduate, and a lot of those people may not be able to find a job they want, but they perfect candidates to run for public office. We
Right.
don't try to get them to run. They're
I
ready.
agree.
One
Yeah.
time they were in school, they wasn't exposed to it. When you talking about
Right.
the children, we got a lost generation beyond high school.
Absolutely.
That just will not
Absolutely.
vote. Well, I'm not gonna vote. They don't even understand when you out kissing babies and asking for their vote. They're saying, let me go to work for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But they have no conversation with you. They'll look at you and say, oh, that's Senator Johnson.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're a public servant.
Yeah.
That's the one person that works for them. But if they don't know what your issues are,
Exactly.
what your concerns are,
That's why the program, people ask me, you go on this, you go on that program. I said, look, I go on those programs. It's important for the people
Exactly.
to see this energy, to
Absolutely.
understand how important it is. And so you seem so passionate. I said, no, this is me.
This is
This
who
is the
you
life
are.
I live.
Right.
I mean, how can you not be on fire about what needs to happen in this state?
Absolutely.
I'm 63 years old, but I get just as angry, just as frustrated, and I work just as hard to get something done as I did 25 years ago, because that's how important it is to me.
We're a little under a minute and
I
a
want to
half. Go
ask you
ahead.
something. You know, every year, and I don't think it happened this past year, but the PERS, the Public Employees Retirement System, because you have the city, the county, the state employees,
Yeah,
the IHL work. Say something about that. So, because a lot of people are calling me, and what they're going to do about the 13 check and all that.
They're not going to do anything about it, but they're not going to do anything about it because there are people who call. You're talking about something that crosses lines.
That's right.
White folks and black folks agree on that one. Retired teacher, my mama and the white woman she didn't speak to who taught school, they both agree. Don't mess with my 13
That's
check.
right.
And so people they understand that, but there may be some adjustment that have to be made. It won't be on the 13 check, but it may be whether or not people can come back and work without paying into
Right.
the retirement system.
Right.
And some of those things may have to happen because you want it to stay healthy. And so the board has an interest in making sure it stays healthy, but they also know the legislature will never get rid of the 13 check.
We
Well,
need
that's
you
good.
back
That's
again
great.
and again
I'm
and
serious,
again
Representative
during the
Johnson.
session.
Please come
no,
back.
And
let-
recommend other people.
Look,
Really?
let's do
Really do
something the first and second week during the session to talk about where we are, what we're going to. We're probably going to vote on marijuana and redistricting early on in the session.
But now I'm
So it'll be
going
something
on
to
a
talk
cruise
about.
from the 6th to the 10th.
This
Good
is
for you.
maybe
Let's
this
do it after the 10th. There's plenty of time.
Representative Johnson, thank you so much for being here. Ms. Brenda, thank you so much for being here. Today's show is brought to you by earthblend.coffee. Get you some. The link is in the Facebook description box. We have had a very informative
Yes.
conversation. Please tune in next week, Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.